Okay, I'm Sam Schnaidt. I'm one of the members of the board of the Granville Historical Society, and I'm talking today with Richard Gosnell. He is an old-time Granville resident, and he's going to kind of talk to us about what growing up in Granville was like in his childhood, in his young high school years. What year were you born, Richard?
1930.
1930, and
Yeah.
you were born where? Where'd you
On
live?
Welch Hills Road, in the house.
Okay. You said it was the second house on the left as you're going
Yeah.
out of town.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
gone now.
It's gone now, yeah. So what are your earliest memories of Granville?
Well, I can remember all the roads leading out of Granville, outside of dirt Granville Road and the road to Columbus. They were all dirt roads. I mean, that dirt, but I don't mean gravel, I mean dirt.
Big dirt road, interesting.
Most of them, the one that went out past our house, I can remember the WPA coming out there, and that was the first improvements. They dug ditches and crowned the road and made it better, put gravel on it. And then sometime after that, they came through and put shot sand and tar. And but before that, when you left Granville, you were on dirt roads, and it was interesting back then.
Right. What did your father do?
He was a mail carrier.
In town or rural or what?
Rural route, yeah. He carried north of Granville and south of Granville back when he first started with one horse and a little mail cart. He carried north of Granville, and then he changed horses, did south of Granville. And it was always funny, he carried two guns with him, 230 caliber, 32 caliber handguns. And I don't think my dad would have ever shot at anybody.
Just wanted to be safe.
But he had to carry them. I mean, that was the rules.
Okay, for a postman.
Because back in those days, that there was a lot of mail carriers got robbed, I guess. People sent money through the mail and things like that. And
When did he start carrying mail?
it must have been in the 20s.
Uh-huh.
See, he died in 1938.
Did he ever go to an automobile?
Pardon?
Did he ever switch from the horse and carriage to a car?
He originally had a big old high-wheeled Studebaker, one of the wooden spoke wheels.
Yeah.
I can remember that. And then he had a Chevrolet. He had both the cars, and if the weather was real bad and the snow was real deep, he put chains on the old Studebaker, and that's what he drove. And but it was like a tank.
Uh-huh. Interesting.
But he was a kind of guy that could do everything. And my biggest regrets are that he died. I was 8 years old, so I didn't get to learn much from him.
Uh-huh.
But that's life.
Then did your mother work?
She did after a while. She had plenty of money to live on, but she got a job, worked at the Dennis University in the housekeeping department for a while.
Uh-huh.
Then she worked at the Granville Inn, telephone operator and desk clerk. She worked there till they closed it. Then she went to work at Dennis as a switchboard operator. And that's where she stayed until she retired.
When was that then?
I'm not sure exactly about what time it was. See, I worked up there 44 years.
At Denison?
Yeah.
What did you do?
Well, 20 some years I was on the building maintenance. And the next 20 some years I worked as a painter, part-time electrician, part-time glass installer. Kind of did a little everything.
Kind of a jack of all trades.
Yeah, because And I was interested in so much stuff, and I like to learn things. So. And evidently I was a quick learner because most of the stuff I learned I retained.
Great.
I worked for a well driller back when the first 27 years I worked at Denison. I worked from, be 4:30 in the morning till 11:30. It's off all afternoon. So I got a part-time job working for a well driller. And I did that because it paid good money and I was interested in pumps and well drilling and stuff like that.
Was that water wells or oil wells? Water wells.
Yeah. And when they moved the ice cream plant from Utica down to where it's at now, the old mill,
yes,
we drilled a well for that. Glenn Applegate was the driller.
Okay, I remember that name.
And I worked for him. And
so when you started the school, tell us where the school was.
well, I started to Granville to school.
Yeah.
Well, when I started kindergarten, I went 2 years because it was a good way to get a babysitter for me. And I went 1 year when my brother did, and then I went another year when I was supposed to. And after I got into grade school, most of the time we walked to school because the bus came past the house, but we lived within a mile, so we had to walk.
Right, well,
And,
I grew up on Cedar Street and exactly the same thing.
Same
I had
thing.
just about the
Yeah.
same amount of,
did you remember Mary Richardson who lived in that little house? As you turn on Cedar Street, it's up on the back. Trent Bradley lived there.
Oh,
the
yeah.
last person I knew.
Andrews lived there, Jim Andrews and
Yeah.
Peg
Yeah.
lived there, yeah. Who lived there when you were there?
Mary Richardson.
Okay, didn't know her.
And then the next house, there was a family by the name of Burris lived the next house. There's only 2 houses on that side.
Right,
Burris had, I guess you'd call it a small farm.
right,
And they eventually sold it off into lots. And back when I was a kid, Ruth Taylor, so I had horseback riding classes to Denison.
right.
And I got to working for her some. And saddling horses, cleaning horses, getting the burrs out of their tails and stuff like that.
Right, yes.
And then I went to riding with the classes. And I worked for her off and on clear through high school. And
She was the one that ran what they called, the formal name was the Granville Stables. If you were going to Denison, or the Denison Stables, they kind of made it a little classier than it was, and it,
yeah, that was just a high class name for a bunch of old nags.
right, yes.
Hey,
Yeah.
we always tried to do the upper thing.
Right, yeah. Denison had that sounding pretty classy, but it was just Ruth Taylor and her friend Mo
Yeah.
that,
Maud Oaks.
Maud Oaks, yeah,
And some of her grandchildren. And
yeah.
so yeah, no, Granville was an interesting place to grow up.
So you started kindergarten in the old elementary school there on Granger Street?
Went to what they called the old Union School.
Union School, yes.
Had 6 grades there. They had kindergarten and 3 up above. After that, you went to the high school.
For your junior high and
Junior
high school,
high,
yeah.
High school. Yeah.
Do you remember any of your elementary teachers?
Let's see. No, I can't say it. I can pick one out right offhand.
Okay,
There was a period of time, like that time my dad died when I was 8 years old. There was a period of time where it was kind of fuzzy.
uh-huh,
I don't know whether I tried to block it out or,
uh-huh.
you know.
Was Miss Vessels there?
Pardon?
Miss Vessels? She was the principal,
Yeah, she was
and
there.
she was my second grade teacher there.
Stan Martin was a superintendent
Yeah.
at Granville High School, and let's see, who was the guy that taught industrial arts? Tom Quick.
Oh,
He
okay.
was the industrial arts teacher plus superintendent.
Yeah. Now you probably had this was before my time, but there was a teacher, principal by the name of Harvey Williams.
Harvey goes back when I was in grade school. Yeah. Yeah, I can remember we had a kid by the name of Perry Dearman. And we were, I think, in the 6th grade maybe. And Spencer's nickname was Bonnie. And he came in and gave a talk. When he got ready to leave, everybody, goodbye, Mr. Spencer, goodbye, Mr. Spencer. And Perry Dearman popped up and he said, so long, Bonnie. That got him a good lashing.
Right. And do you remember any of your high school teachers?
Oh yeah, there was a lot of them. God, Hal Smith, and there was Martha Robinson, and let's see, Tom Quick. There was some coaches that I didn't play sports. I spent all my time hunting and fishing.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, there was quite a few. Dana Still, he won Sticks in My Mind. He's one of the best.
Uh-huh.
And, yeah. We had a lot of good teachers back then.
What was I assume you were allowed to walk uptown or ride your bicycle if you had one uptown when you were pretty young?
Everything was pretty loose back then.
Right.
I used to go out to my uncle's, he lived in McKean Township. So my cousins rode the bus that came into Granville to school. So if I was going to go out there and go hunting, I'd take my shotgun, my hunting coat, and leave it in the superintendent's office. And get on the school bus, ride out and go hunting. You know.
With your gun?
Yeah. Nobody cared. Nobody thought anything.
Nobody worried about it, did they?
Yeah. That was before people started shooting people.
Right.
I mean, we hunted and it was just a way of life. So it was kind of interesting. And I used to shoot pigeons off of Union School. Shoot them off the roof.
Yeah.
And stuff like that. And I can remember back when I was a kid that had large migrations of mostly starlings and blackbirds. And they would come in and just roost in the trees in Granville. At that time, there weren't too many trees around outside of Granville because everybody cut their trees down to burn for firewood or whatever. And they'd come in there and roost, and the people in town would go out and shoot up into those trees and kill those birds and make them fly away because the sidewalks would be so littered you couldn't walk on them. I mean, it was just nothing but bird poop all over everything. But that was the way of life.
Right. Do you remember any of the specific stores uptown in the business block?
Oh, yeah. There was Gregory Hardware.
Okay.
That was my favorite place. You could buy hunting licenses, shotgun shells, all kinds of guns, everything, traps, all kinds of plumbing equipment, paint. And when I first started, after I got out of high school, did a lot of painting for people. I dealt mostly with the hardware store. And in the basement, back when I was younger, there was a rifle range. And we'd go down there and target practice, stuff like that.
That was still there when I was young. Yep, I remember going down there as well. They didn't worry about kids going in there. It was fine.
Yeah. And when I was really getting out where I was taking more or less water around, they used to show movies on Friday and Saturday night, most rarely on Saturday. They hung a sheet, I think it was on the back of the hardware store. And somebody had a movie projector, they'd come there and show movies to keep the kids entertained, these cartoons, and while the parents were shopping.
Yeah, I remembered that also. They were still doing that when I was young at Granville. That kind of ended soon after that. And I remember the projector would break frequently, and But yeah, you could take a blanket up there and take some popcorn and
But I can
watch the
remember,
movie free.
the hardware store, there was a red and white grocery in part of it, and an Isley's ice cream store in part of it. And then when you got on Prospect Street, there was a little shed underneath. There used to be a fire escape come down that side. And it was a crippled guy that they put a roof on underneath the fire escape. And he had a little shelter in there. He was in a wheelchair and he sold magazines and candy and chewing gum and stuff like that. And then you go on up the street, there was the alley, and then there was Pete Johnson's barber shop. Next to that would have been Skeeter Johnson's, where you go up the stairway to the dry cleaner.
Yeah,
And next would be Oscar Brown, then the Hut Restaurant,
okay.
and beyond that was the tire shop. And in the back of the tire shop was Barney Tavner had a welding shop. And that was what was, I can remember on that
On
side.
Prospect Street, yeah.
And then on the other side of the street, Les Berger had the filling station Sinclair.
Yep.
And in back of that, there used to be a family, a couple of guys named Simpson. And they were plumbers, and they rode motorcycles. They didn't have cars. And it was funny to see them on those motorcycles. These were back, the real old motorcycles, have a section of pipe over their shoulder. Headed out to do the job.
Their name was Simpson.
Yeah.
I was remembering another guy that had a plumbing shop in the back of Welch's Grocery. And I thought that was, there was a shed on the back of Welch's Grocery.
Yeah, I don't know who that was.
And I remember a guy that was,
Another thing I knew back in there was Doug Fryman's garage.
right, yeah, Central
Second
Garage.
garage, yeah.
And you remember that area was called Petunia Park.
Yeah.
And I don't think there are any petunias in there.
No, back when I was young, didn't even have a name.
Right, okay.
But, yeah, Granville had a bakery shop on the south side of Broadway. Family by the name of Johnson's owned it. And Treaty's drugstore. And back when my dad, if I can remember, when he first started carrying mail that out of Granville, I can remember. The mail post office was on the corner there where the police department is.
The post office was there?
That was the post office. That was before they built the new one across the street.
Okay.
And after they built the new one, they moved over there. Then that building was a restaurant. The guy from Denison ran a restaurant in there. And the reason I remember those places, I used to eat there, had one of the cutest waitresses you ever see.
What was her name?
I don't know. She was from West Virginia.
Oh.
But she was drawing a big crowd of guys in.
Oh, okay.
Well, it was funny. And you know, the Opera House, underneath the Opera House at one time was a restaurant, was Rosato's restaurant.
Yeah.
Did you ever eat there?
No, but I remember it.
They had the best Italian hamburgers you could ever eat. And Rosie Rosato and her brother both worked in there as waiter and waitresses. And they really drew a crowd because they were both knock dead good looking. They had all the boys and all the girls coming in.
Right.
And you remember when Bob Owens had a restaurant up there on Main Street?
Where?
It was right at the foot of the drag.
Bob Owens?
Yeah. That was way back. I think it just kind of, people used to do that.
In their house?
Yeah, in their house.
Yeah, no.
And I remember when Main Street was all brick, from the drag clear out to the railroad track.
All the way.
Yeah. Yeah. And I can remember E.R. Spray used to have a pickup truck and he would haul luggage and stuff from the depot up to Denison when the college kids were coming in.
Uh-huh.
They'd have our stuff shipped on the train. And he'd haul it from there up to whatever dormitory they were gonna be in.
Okay, yeah, interesting.
And, yeah, and in there where the Granville Museum's at, that was, the barber shop,
Alex and Buster Roberts.
Buster Roberts,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember them.
yeah. And let's see, what else?
Your
The
son
Imperial
mentioned,
Station on the corner of, well, what they call Worthington Road, Columbus Road,
Yeah,
sitting right on the corner of the Imperial Station. And,
that was the Sunoco station later.
yeah,
Hal Jenkins had that later.
Yeah.
That was a,
yeah,
so that was probably after they built the Pure Oil station out on the, or on the,
yeah, I
Point
think it
there.
was, yeah.
yeah, College and Broadway Point, they built that Pure Oil station there. So, I'm sure you never got in any kind of trouble, but did any of your friends get in trouble? Is there any stories you might like to tell us about?
Yeah, basically, the only thing that really stands out in my mind that we used to do, of course, this was before I got a driver's license. I was probably 15, maybe 14, 15 years old. A friend of mine had a driver's license and he had a Model A Ford. And believe it or not, we played automobile tag. And how you tag somebody, you'd run into their back bumper, and if you bumped them, then they had to chase you till they caught you. And we raced the streets in Granville. We didn't have any police back then.
I was gonna ask you if they had a police department.
No, I think the only policeman we had back at that time might have been Paul Ramsey. And he was also in charge of cleaning the streets. And
I remember him doing both of those. He lived up there on Pearl Street, kind of up on the hill.
Yeah, on the hill.
Yeah, and then he worked at Gregory Hardware too,
Yeah.
later, I think.
Yeah, you know, that was a nice thing about Gregory Hardware. If you were a retired painter, carpenter, plumber, or anything like that, electrician, if you wanted something to do, you worked in the hardware, and people come in wanting how to do something, you could tell them how to fix it. They could buy the parts and fix it themselves.
Right.
And there was a gentleman by the name of Frank Weston who used to do plumbing in Granville. And he didn't have a car. So if you wanted Frank to do work for you, you had to go get him. He'd come and look at the job and he took him to get the stuff he needed, bring him back and he'd fix it. That's it. But that's the way people worked back then.
Right, nobody complained about it.
Yeah. And when I got out of high school, another fellow I started after, first hitch I did when I got out of high school, spent one summer running the jackhammer. And then I worked on the telephone line as a lineman. And after that, I quit being a lineman. Another fellow I went to work doing odd jobs. And we did that after I went to work at Dennis. Of course, I was working, getting off at noon. We kept on working, doing odd jobs around town. And, we had a lot of good jobs. And I remember working at the Hut Restaurant. Bob and Bernice Hood owned it back then. And Bernice was one heck of a cook. So I took part of my wages. I had 4 sons that hard to feed. I took part of my wages. She baked the most beautiful pies. So I'd say, okay, how much for each pie? She told me, I said, I'll take part of my wages in pies. That's what I did. Kids ate them up like crazy.
Working in there part-time.
But that's the way people used to trade off, you know. That was
Right.
a good thing.
Are there any particular bad memories you have of Granville in the early days, in your early days?
Bad memories I had was, can't think of any.
Can't think of it. That's pretty good.
far as I was concerned, Granville was a great place to be from. And, you know, really, I think what made it nice was when I grew up, of course, like I said, my dad died when I was 8 and my mother was working. And I was just ratting around uptown on my own. You didn't do anything stupid. Everybody knew you. You had all kinds of parents looking after you. And I think that's what made it great.
I think you're right. I remember my dad saying, Granville's a small town, you better not do anything bad, because I'll hear about it.
Well, if I did something stupid, my mother knew it before I got home. So, you know, I mean, it's just the way people were.
Right.
And so, you know, I was pretty careful about what I did. And I had been a few rules, like the swimming thing. I wasn't supposed to do it, but I did it. So, well, the guys I hung around with, they were most generally guys older than me. And they taught me how to swim, taught me how to smoke, taught me a lot of stuff I shouldn't have.
Right.
And, you know, it was an interesting way to grow up, but I guess when you have a single parent trying to run things, it
makes it harder.
Yeah.
Certainly.
I don't think anybody should undertake that, trying to raise kids, just one parent.
Unfortunately, there's a lot more of that today than there was
This is
back then.
what's the matter with this country.
Right.
This is the downfall of this country, is the fact that there's not parents guiding them. The kids don't know what to do. Another thing, I think, back when I was a kid, we didn't have any time when we didn't know what we were going to do. We played basketball, football, baseball. We used to make up games to play. We played all kinds of goofy stuff.
Right.
Winter time was sled riding, snowball fights, ice skating. Some of us had skis, and you know, stuff like that. I mean, it was always busy.
Right. Yes.
And now kids don't have anything to do. If they don't have an adult tell them, okay, you gotta do this, you gotta do that, this is how you do it. And I see this with my great-grandchildren. They cannot improvise. They gotta have everything taught to them. It's not good.
Right. No.
Because as I look at the big picture, most of the people that are telling them what to do don't know what they're talking about. Because they've never done it.
Right.
And everybody grows up different. Everybody's built different. And I learned to swing a baseball bat on my own. Nobody taught me how. I learned to shoot a rifle on my own. I shoot left-handed. I'm right-handed. I'm left-handed. When I was a painter, I painted one hand and the other hand. I mean, it didn't make any difference.
Right. Used them both.
And
One got tired, you could go to the other one.
well, when I was born, I was left-handed. When I went to school, everybody had to do right-handed.
So they
converted me.
right. Is that where they slap you across the fingers?
Part of your education.
Right. Yep. And if you did something bad in school and you went home, your parents were gonna probably make it worse on you.
Yeah.
They didn't go defend you and go call the teacher and say you can't do this to my sweet little boy.
Well, I get cinched a few times, and I don't think I ever got a whipping I didn't deserve. I probably earned every one of them.
Right. Yeah.
Because I was kind of a younger kid. I mean, I was pushing the envelope, you might say.
Right. Right.
But I grew up in Granville. I love that place. I don't think much of it now because it's not like it used to be.
It's a little bigger than it used to be.
Well, used to be, you go up to Granville, you had 3 or 4 restaurants you could go eat in, had a couple of drugstores, you had places you could go to buy stuff. You can't get diddly in Granville now. And it's a shame.
Did your mother have a charge account and you could charge your bubble gum or anything?
Never charged anything. If you didn't pay for it, you didn't get it. And that's the way I still operate.
Good.
I carry a pocket full of money, and if I can't pay for it, I don't get it. That's it.
Right, that's not bad.
I don't have a credit, well, I do have a credit card, because you have to have one in
Right.
this day and age, but I never use it. In
Right.
fact, my son laughed the last time I had to use it. I had to ask him how to do it.
Right, yeah.
I mean, I'm a dinosaur. I don't have a computer, a cell phone I never turn on. I mean, it's just crap.
Right. Do you still drive?
Yeah,
Good.
I'm going to get a new knee
Oh, good.
Friday.
Huh? Got one Friday?
Gotta get it done Friday.
This Friday?
Yep.
Good.
Yep.
Good.
Yeah, this got to a point where it dumps me every once in a while.
No, you don't need that.
No. And so I've got to get it fixed.
Right. Is there anything else that stands out that you'd like to tell us about your early days in Granville, or have we covered it pretty well?
Well, I can think that basically that pretty much covers it. I remember going to the old sale barn in Granville. It used to be down there,
Yeah.
back with the lumber company.
Down on Munson Street.
And, things like that keep popping up in your mind.
Right.
And I can remember being uptown one day when some guy was bringing his workhorse in to sell, and he had it hooked onto the back of his car on a trailer. The tongue broke. The horse went through the front of the trailer.
Oh.
Didn't hurt the horse, but sure rode the trailer.
Uh-huh.
And, stuff like that. But, there's so many things about Granville that's in the past that, it's just things that eventually, if I sat around long enough, it'd pop into my mind.
Right.
Now I'm 93 years old, so a little slippage.
But you're happy to say you grew up in Granville, aren't you?
Definitely that.
Yeah. Good.
It's a great place. There's something else. The Granville Historic Society's got a box of glass slides. They used to have a slide projector. They showed those slides.
Yeah. Okay.
Those slides belong to me.
Oh, they do?
I gave them to, I can't think of the name. He was a professor. Dick Howe.
Dick Howe? Yeah.
Okay, he borrowed them from me. He had them. He passed away. But those slides, those are the ones that I salvaged from. They were tearing down a building at Denison, cleaning it out, and they were throwing that stuff away, and I wanted the case that the slides were in. So I took 2 cases, and the one case had all the pictures and slides of Granville, shows pictures of downtown Granville, horse and buggies,
Yeah.
and Model T Fords and stuff like that. And it shows Denison, no trees.
Hmm.
If you look at those slides, you see what Granville used to look like.
Did you ride the bus to Newark sometimes?
Huh?
Did you ride the bus to Newark sometimes?
Always did.
Oh, yeah.
See, I didn't have a car when I got out of high school. And, I worked and rode the bus, and get out and catch the bus, go to work. And, worked at the Granville Inn. I worked in the dining room. I worked in dishwasher, bellhop.
Is that when Sally Sexton was running it?
Not then. That was before Sally.
Before Sally?
Yeah.
Who was running it then?
A fellow out of Columbus.
Oh.
They were, J.S. Jones had this lawyer and a group of people kind of like took over right after J.S. died.
Uh-huh.
And they kept it running. And then Sally finally took it over and got the toilet.
Right. Yeah. thank you very much. I think your memories in your interview were very, very interesting, and I learned some things that I didn't know, and I particularly like the story about your dad with the horse-drawn mail carrier. I think that's a neat thing that I had
Well, it was interesting.
never thought about.
It was just, it's an interesting place to live.
Right,
Yeah.
yes.
Sam, I have some questions.
Oh, okay, yeah. Go ahead, Chuck.
This is Chuck Peterson with the Historical Society. Your son mentioned, you recalled how when you were growing up, the farmers and everybody from the country, everybody came to town on Saturday night. Can you talk about what that looked like?
Well, basically, Granville was as busy could be. Welch's Grocery, which used to be Perry's, and all the grocery stores, red and white, all of them, were extremely busy because farmers brought their families in, and that's the reason they had those movies back in the hardware stores. That kept the kids entertained while the folks shop. And that was the only time that we got to see kids we went to school with. And the other thing was all these farmers would get together, their wives would get talking back and forth, and they'd compare notes and want to know how everybody was doing. It was just like, somebody can communicate it. And if it wasn't for that, then they didn't see each other from week to week or maybe month to month. And, the only thing they had to buy when they came into town would be sugars, maybe some kind of soap, flour, salt. They raised everything else. So, and I can remember when I was a kid, my mother she canned beef, she made sausage and put it in crocks. You fried the sausage, put a layer of grease over it, made a layer. And that's how you preserved it. And same way canning beef, you had canned beef. And, we didn't go to the store and buy a whole lot. I had a milk cow, I had a big garden, I can remember that. And had chickens, and, farmers were pretty self-sufficient.
Okay, let's see, do you remember what you were doing on the day you heard about Pearl Harbor being attacked?
No, I can't say that I remember that.
Okay.
I remember the day they beat Germany, they whipped Germany. I was painting the back porch there at my mother's house, and I remember that.
Anything else about World War II that you remember?
Not much.
What was happening in the community, or?
Some of the guys came back from Second World War and did not want to talk about it. It was just something they wanted to put behind them. And a lot of them came back and self-medicated. But basically, I knew a lot of those guys were alcoholics, but every one of them worked an 8-hour day. They started drinking when they got off work.
When you were in high school, where did kids hang out around Granville?
Well, most generally, Big and Sheriff was hung out in the Hut restaurant. I worked at the inn a lot when I was in high school, and I worked from like 4 o'clock in the afternoon to 9:30, 10 o'clock at night, and that was where we spent our evenings. So basically, money.
Didn't have time to hang out.
Didn't do much hanging out.
When you talk about swimming in Raccoon Creek, where did you usually swim?
Before I started, we used to go down right past where the heating plant is. Just before you got to the bridge, there was a big cornfield. Some of those fields they used to plant, it was kind of hit and miss thing because a lot of times they'd flood. But we'd go down there, there's a good swimming hole right there. And, I remember riding out there one day, back when I was a kid, I was always tinkering. I took fenders off my bicycle, cause I thought it ran faster. It probably didn't, but anyway, I thought it did. So I went down Main Street, going out there to go swimming, and they just freshly tarred and gravelled that road. I hit that and I had a black streak right up my back, hit my hair. It took a little explaining to my mother. She was not a happy person.
I bet.
You know, you talk about Granville being so different today. When did it start to change, do you think, over the years?
When did I notice it starting to change? I would say probably in the early 50s, maybe 51, 52.
Mm-hmm.
When I went to work at Denison, they had just hired a new president. That was Blair Knapp. They had just finished building the field house. And it seemed like Denison was beginning to prosper and Granville seemed to be picking up at the same time. And I think a lot of it had to do with people were coming back, people were getting jobs, factories were opening, and there was money being spent, and I think that that's when I noticed that Granville started changing. And,
Okay.
and a lot of soldiers coming back were building new houses, and you know, Granville started having the suburbs, as you'd control it that.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, I think that's a transition that I noticed mostly.
Mm-hmm.
And
Okay.
but there was money to be spent.
Mm-hmm. Do you remember, were you around when the Opera House burned down?
I don't remember much about that. I was not living in town when it burned down. I was living outside of town.
Mm-hmm.
And see, when my first wife and I first got married, we lived up on campus. They had what they called GI housing up there they had soldiers coming back.
I remember that.
And so we lived in one of those apartments, and then we bought a house out on the corner, Dry Creek Road and 661. Lived there till I got it fixed up to suit, and then we bought a house closer to Granville, so the kids could go to Granville to school. We bought the old butcher place. I painted it inside and out 100%. Then we moved into Granville. And it seemed like as soon as I got one fixed up, we moved.
And what street did you live on when you moved to Granville?
Moved on Granger Street, right next to the old Union School. Yeah.
Alright.
Little brown shingle house still there.
Yeah,
Joe Hickman lives in that.
right, yeah.
Yeah. And we fixed that up, remodeled it, and then Joe come along, wanted to buy it. My wife, I had cancer at the time. The doctor that was treating me for cancer said he had 6 months to live, which is, here I am, doctor's dead. And I won.
Good, right.
So anyway, we left the house on Granger Street, sold that to Joe Hickman, moved into a condo over on North Newark.
Okay.
Mom and Dad raised 4 boys, and Hickman's raised 4 girls.
Oh,
An interview Sam did recently with Luella Hodges. She was a year behind you in school. She talked about Mrs. Robinson. Is that the one, Sam, who gave you a test about the cover of Time magazine and who was on the cover? Do you remember that at all?
I remember Martha Robinson because she was a rather buxom woman, and she had a chain with the watch on it. And she'd look at her watch and then drop it down the front. I can remember, Martha was one heck of a teacher. I had her for homeroom, and you didn't misbehave in that homeroom. You went in, you sit down, and you shut up, that was it.
you didn't misbehave anywhere in that school when I went there, and I'll bet you didn't when you went there, or you got in trouble.
Yeah, you know, we were pretty careful.
Yeah,
Yeah. We had Howard Smith, he was kind of a big guy.
Yeah.
He was kind of like well, if you got in trouble, they sent you to see Howard. And that was nothing you wanted to do.
Nope, he was the principal when I was there. Was he principal when you were there?
Yeah, I think he was
Yeah.
vice principal or something, yeah.
Yeah.
Do you remember Tom Quick?
I knew his daughter. His daughter went to school with me in elementary school. I knew Anita
Yeah.
Quick. I didn't know her dad.
Well, Tom used to be an industrial arts teacher, and as I can remember way back, and I was fairly young, he and another teacher, they used to, I think, work with our baseball teams, softball team,
Uh-huh.
and no, that isn't right. That was Russ Dixon. Not Tom Quick, it was Russ Dixon. Russ Dixon, Forrest Moran, they used to work with the softball team. And it was a pickup team, it was not actually through the school or
Yeah.
anything. And the reason we had them, because they could haul us to the ball games. And other than that, they didn't teach us anything.
Uh-huh.
I mean, it's just, we learned it on our own. We were too good, pretty good. We lost one game in 2 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
Do you have any other questions,
That's
Joe?
that's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you very much.
Hey, it was fun.
It was fun for us, and you've
You
shed
get a
some light.
chance, look at those glass slides.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know where they are. We'll have to find out.
Because I remember when he got those slides off me, he said they had a museum, had a slide projector.
Mhm.
And he wanted the slides because he was going to show them
Yeah.
whether he did or not. I don't know.
You may have, that's been a while since Dick Howe's been there.
Yeah, I remember that, they're little about like that.
Yeah, I know what they look like. They're about 2-inch
Yeah, they're-
square glass
Yeah,
slides.
Yeah, the glass slides about so big.
Yeah, I know
And
exactly.
you know, the only reason I found out afterwards that I could have taken those, there was a guy at Denison who was in the theater department and also in some other part. They took photographic stuff,
Oh,
and he said he could make pictures off of those slides.
mm,
And that's what I was gonna have done, but I never got the slides back, so.
right.
Do you want them back?
At my age, no.
I was.
Just
Well, we.
Put my name all on it, keep.
Yeah. Okay, we will. And yeah, we ought to do that
We
because
should
we have
have-
these other glass negatives that we did that with. So yeah, I am
I'm
definitely gonna ask about
anxious to
that.
see them now.
But,
Yeah.
you know, you could take them someplace, somebody could make pictures of them.
Right. Yeah.
And there are pictures of Granville and Denison. You cannot believe this Denison has no trees,
Mm.
just bare.
Did Greg Green's ever turn in it was a Little League uniform from Gregory's Hardware?
He talked about coming or showing us some stuff he had, but not that I remember.
It was probably 5 or 6 years ago, and I was uptown,
Uh huh.
and I talked to the lady that worked up there, and at that time, you know, Greg, that was just shortly after they built the CVS, and, you know, he's putting displays up and everything. I said something to him, I said, you wanna make a display out of this? He goes, yeah. And so the lady took my name and everything, and the uniform belonged to, it was like Bill Harris is my father-in-law. And he coached the Gregory Hardware team. In that uniform there, his daughter was the bat boy on the team, and she wore it. It was one of them old wool uniforms and everything. But Greg was supposed to give it back to her, you know, give it to her. And at that time, they were just starting to maybe build like a sports thing on the back side of the museum.
Mm.
And I was gonna donate that in Bill's name to the sports thing. So I just wondered if it ever got turned in
I don't know.
or,